Minorities connote power relations that lead to exclusion, marginalization, and victimization commonly along ethnic, religious, gender, sexual orientation, and disability levels. Minorities can be described both in terms of numbers and quality of participation. What categories of people can lay claims to being minorities is often difficult to define. However, other categories may be legally declared as minorities to receive special favors in the interest of inclusion.
I think I'm the only one who survived being married after primary 5.
At Nsinze, we were and still are the only Orthodox family in that township.
Where I come from is so marginal that for so many years, my people have not seen tarmac road.
Being in Kasese feels like being at the extreme end of Uganda.
4 African Humanities Fellows from Uganda share their experiences as minorities in the socio-cultural and educational contexts they live in.
My name is Danson Kahyana. I come from Mbwera Sub-County, Bukonzo County. I'm a Mukonzo. I was born in Kasese. I grew up in Kasese. I studied my primary school in Kasese, and I got Kasese quite a lot. I come from a large family. My father was polygamous. He was a fish seller. Unfortunately, he died young at 48. I opted out of university residence to become a non-resident so that I could use my living out allowance to support some of my siblings.
My name is Sauda Namyalo Birabwa. I was born in Tuma village in Bukomansimbi to a Muslim clergy, and my mother was a peasant farmer. After primary 5, my parents decided that if I'm not continuing in the Sharia, where they felt that I would be protected as a girl child, then I should be married off.
I'm Sister Dominic Dipio. I am a Madi. The Madi are 0.5% of the Ugandan population. And Madi is located in the West Nile region. I'm born in a family of 10. My father was a senior medical assistant, and my mother was a full-time mother and wife. We, the children, all had the possibility to go to school and study as far as our capacities could take us. Thanks to my father and his value for education that did not discriminate one gender against the other.
I grew up knowing my father as a headmaster, and my mother was a primary 2 teacher. We studied in the same schools as our father and mother because they were conscious about that religious segregation. For secondary school, he took us to Namasagali College. In that school, there were only 2 families of Orthodox among 1,000. We participated in that community as Roman Catholics. After Namasagali College, I went to National Teachers College, Masindi, and I was the only Orthodox there. Among a student community of, I think, 300, I was more acceptable among the Roman Catholic community. The chaplain invited me when he knew that I was Orthodox, accepted me fully. But this brought problems in the Roman Catholic student community. Some students went to the parish priest and said, but why do you treat Cornelius preferentially? He doesn't come to confession, and yet he invited me to communion. He told them, go and ask him. I had to stand up and explain to the students what the difference is between the different religions and what the Orthodox Church is.
I had grown up in a village which was predominantly Muslim, where all of us were Baganda. So I thought that all Ugandans are Muslims and all Ugandans are Baganda. And now I joined primary school where all the regions were represented, people of different culture. I went into a shock for quite some months. The language was also a problem to me. That in a way affected my performance. Coming from a rural, poor background to this posh kind of a school with my chikapu, not having sanitary pads, we could always improvise and get old pieces of cloth, clean them and use those as the sanitary pads. I realized that that was a second layer of minority. My turning point was in primary 6, third term. There were these mathematical competitions which were to take place nationally. Tell you what, I emerged the best. Everyone now knew Sauda in the school. I started making friends. They could share with me their, nice grab. That time, you join the school, you also join the Christian community. I found myself getting involved in all the religious activities of the school. I forgot about being a Muslim. At school, it's about Christianity, it's about studies. At home, it's about your religion and about the fact that you are female and you are supposed to be married to someone. Over the weekend, they tell me, Sauda, you are getting married on Sunday. In the evening, my brother passes by to greet mom. She tells him that we decided that your sister should be married. If we lose this opportunity, we will never get it back. So my brother tells my parents, Sauda is not getting married. I'm lucky to have had a brother who believed in me.
I went to Mundongo Primary School, where I spent 6 years. Then I had to Kitalikivi Primary School. And so that's why I sat my primary 7 living examinations. I went to St. Leo's College, Chegove. I always knew I was a Mkonzo, but at St. Leo's College, my Mkonzo identity became very pronounced because of the historical issues that Toro Kingdom had with Kasese Kingdom. In A-level, I decided to go to Dare School, where I spent 2 years. And surprisingly, my identity as a Mkonzo was never mentioned because nobody saw me as a Mkonzo. They saw me as a student.
As a student, I was also a minority in my class because I was the only religious sister in that class. And I remember very well my lecturer of blessed memory, Dr. Katebalire Amoti, who also became my MA supervisor. He used to pick me out in class all the time because he saw me as outstanding in the way I did my assignments and in the way I scored often highly. And he will always compare me to the other female students, and he will say, you see what her advantage is? She is a nun. She wears her veil neatly. She doesn't waste time to spend hours in the salon plaiting her hair, so she has time to read the books. So in this regard, I really look at my special minority in this space as also giving me space to do more and to do better. When I was the head of department of literature, a position definitely in my context as a religious sister in a public university was seen by some people as unlikely. I remember one of my students came to pray for me because he said, you are going to an office where a woman has not occupied that space. As far as I know, I was really touched. As a head of department, I had this lady, a well-placed person in government and in this country. She came to the office of the head of department to look for the head And she found me in that office. Clearly, she was very disappointed. She asked, where is the head of department? And when I told her I was the head of department, the expression on her face really showed, how can this be? And she did not even tell me what it was that brought her. What for me matters is not how people see me. People may see me as a minority, but I like to see myself on the basis of my humanity. First of all, I'm a human being, and a human being who competitively qualified to come to Makerere University as a student first, and later on also considered as qualified to teach in this institution.
For quite long, Muslims have been dominating the trade, and they never saw then the importance of education. As I speak now, I'm not aware of any female Muslim who is at the rank of professor. Even those who have PhDs, they are quite very few. Come here to Makerere, which is a very huge university. The number of Muslim, especially female scholars who have PhDs are very few. In my school, we are only 3 out of a population of 100 plus.
It's quite rare to find a Mukonzo working at Makerere University. I think in total we're about 7 among a staff of more than 3,000 people. So the desire is always there to just be more than you, to be the representative of the whole group.
According to the national statistics, who are active and well informed that they are Orthodox, they talk about 0.1%, which comes up to about 400,000. Before I got into the HP as a dissertation completion fellow, my earlier interest had been in the area of translation. When I wrote to a university, the reply was they couldn't supervise such a dissertation because I was talking about Lusoga and they couldn't find any person to supervise Lusoga. So I got that negative response and I said, maybe let me do it here first, then I can go.
Before the HP, I discovered that there were quite many minority issues in Ugandan studies because I did my PhD on Ugandan literature. And I had never thought about it from that perspective until I wrote about Uganda's first books that was published in 1904, Uganda's Category in England, by people who had never even been to a formal school. Ham Mukasa and Sir Apollo Kagwa. There was a lot that the Ugandan scholars had missed out on that book of 1904. My second article was on Akik Nyabongo, a Ugandan novelist who published a novel called Africa Answers Back in 1935. I was surprised that this novel had not been studied by many people.
Going back to the past through the lens of our folk tales makes us understand what really is the location of the woman in the African culture. Many times we have this wrong perception that the African woman is the most marginalized. But if you revisit our wisdom literature, which is the folk tale, you will find that indeed the African society thrives around the image of the woman as mother in all cultures. I think as scholars, we need to reactivate this sense and revisit our perception of woman.
In our early days of undergraduate, our lecturers then used to tell us that Lululi Lunyala is a dialect of Luganda. As I became more knowledgeable in Bantu linguistics, I wasn't convinced. So I thought that I think this is the opportunity not only to help this minority group, but also to investigate these earlier claims. When I got there, there was a bit of resistance, till when they realized that indeed my interest was in documenting their language. From the data we received, Rururi Lunyala is not a dialect of Luganda. It is closer to Lunyoro than Luganda.
When I went to Rome to do my PhD studies in African cinema, at the defense panel, my work was found to be publishable. When I came back, my creative energies were plowed into introducing film studies in Makerere University, and particularly in the Department of Literature. And that experience really consumed me so much so that I was more directed in the direction of mentoring students into the film art than publishing my thesis. When I did my first feature-length film titled A Meal to Forget, it drew the attention of Ugandans, and it was celebrated in the National Theatre in 2009, where the chief guest was the then Deputy Speaker Rebecca Kadaga. Let me tell you that I went to Angenua because this award ceremony happened in Angenua, and I went with two of my friends there, and we were touched to be awarded. The AHP program was targeting early career scholars who had just completed their PhD up to 5 years, and I was right there on the margin, and I was among the first crop of fellows to be selected. That selection changed my life as a scholar because it gave me the opportunity to dream of publishing finally. So I turned my PhD dissertation into a monograph titled Gender Terrains in African Cinema. This single publication did for me more than what any other previous publications had done.
When the HP came, I applied to work on the empowerment of Luganda language in the field of linguistics. And I came up with a model which we can use, create all technical terms in Luganda. As soon as a word is invented in any language, then we can have an equivalent in Luganda. So it's the same model which I developed during the HP that I've used to come up with a dictionary of Luganda linguistics. We tried it on Lunyankore Luchiga, and we came up with a dictionary of nutrition and food terms.
The HP found me with a lot of literature, which I had failed to collapse into a manageable dissertation. I met Professor Kwesi Yanka, who had researched and written an encyclopedia on all literary forms, who helped me to understand how important the readers were.
The HP gave me an opportunity to engage with minority discourses, be it forgotten texts like Uganda's category in England or Africa Answers Back, but also to engage with a genre that is considered a difficult genre. Not many people publish in poetry.
What I had been doing deliberately in my literature classes was to ask my students to translate at least something in their language so that they can have something on their curriculum vitae related to local languages. The last count we had with the Uganda National Examinations Board, we had trained over 15,000 candidates using the books and materials that I prepared during that period of my PhD.
I go out and do outreaches. I visit schools where I speak to both the pupils and the founders of those schools so that they can encourage this girl child. Even when a girl becomes pregnant, give her a second opportunity.
My skills in filmmaking has prepared me in a particular way to practice my scholarship. Whenever I do an academic paper, I use the film as a tool of documentation, but also a methodology to reach out to people on the margins. I've come to realize that knowledge production is not the responsibility of a sole scholar, but it's more of a shared communitarian responsibility. I take it as my responsibility, my accountability to the community once I have drawn data out of them to also take this data back. And I know that they cannot access this data through academic journals. The community is part of that which builds me as a scholar. This has revolutionized my scholarship. I've been leading a research team that is again focusing on the adaptation of African folk tales into animation films, because at one level it makes us excavate that rich value from our culture, and aware that we are living in a time when technology is important in translating and transmitting even traditional knowledge, so that our children and future generations will not lose sight of these narratives. One of the challenges my region has received over time is the poor performance of students at primary level especially. And for me, that I attribute to the very poor reading culture. So we opened a public library where we put all sorts of books to inculcate the reading culture.
Never allow other people to define you. Stand strong, believe in yourself, and you are likely to beat all the odds.
So there is need to use the minority status as the fuel that propels you to greater heights.
Being a minority could be an advantage, more especially a minority of religion and minority local languages.
I want to speak to those persons who tend to categorize people in stereotypes and keep them in those boxes, that you are missing out on a richer experience of diversity that will also enrich your humanity.